So. Okay, first one is Ryan Fitzgerald. Would you like to have the chair right there? Yeah.
All right. Okay. Basically, yeah, I want to support funding an assistant coach for the robotics club because Miss Riley does a lot for the club and it's grown to where she just can't do a whole lot of it anymore. And I know that my son he's a freshman now, and so he did some of the STEM stuff in middle school, but he really got into the robotics when he got to be a freshman. And it's even turned into something like he wants to go to architect now, he wants to stay in robotics, and so like giving him direction. And so he didn't know if he would do it before this. So, excuse me. And like something like this, when I was, growing up, it would have, given me a direction too, because he's kind of where I was. He's not a jock, he's not with the athletics, and he's not in the chess club. So he's kind of somewhere in between. And when I was just like floating through schools, like I had kind of like no place to be. So kind of having these programs that are a good in between, it's going to open opportunities. And then it's giving these kids jobs that are high paying, they're good in the community, and they're going to come back to the community and keep contributing. So, yeah.
Thank you.
That's what I've said.
Thank you. Leo, Leonard,
Before we sit in the seat.
it's up to you. If you understand and address the group,
That
that
way
way
you
you
used to
should
be on Zoom, just like you like, right? All right, hello. Leo Sano, and my son is in the robotics club, and I have helped out some, not as much as I'd like to, because full-time jobs get in the way of after-school programs, as I'm sure everybody here is aware. So I also am supporting the idea of putting forth monies for an assistant coach. And I have a short presentation as to why. We have three points to make. One's for safety, one's for ongoing support, and one's for longevity. For the point of safety, we have one coach who is overseeing 32 participants. And that would be a lot. That is a overwhelming number of ratio of participants to an instructor. And that's probably more than you'll find for any other competitive group. I was trying to think of any that I could compare it to. I couldn't come up with one. And for the 82 students we had in track this year, I think we had 5 coaches. And this is one coach for 32. And so the spectrum is large. Fortunately, they're mostly contained at the high school between 2 classrooms, but even then, she is tight on time between giving each person the attention they may need during the robotics club. And then also in dealing with safety, if they're at a tournament and the tournaments are at high schools or they're facilities that, especially to some kids who haven't been to larger facilities, might be overwhelmingly large. And like state this year was down at the one of the auxiliary buildings at the state fairgrounds, and it's a big arena for horses normally, and this year was just full of robotics kids, and there was dozens of schools and hundreds of kids, and there was one teacher to observe hours, and to have a couple sets of eyes will only be beneficial to them. To support the more kids, there's always more need for arranging transportation, for arranging funds, for trying to keep track of those things, and having a second person would hopefully be able to ease some of the burden that Mrs. Riley currently has. Also allow for the club to be able to occur should she not be able to be there, because she is the only key carrying person who can do that work. So if she's ill or she happens to want to go on vacation anytime between the end of September and the end of March, she can't because she needs to be there for the kids and she hasn't. Is that my 3 minutes? That's pretty much it.
Sorry.
Wrap it up real quick.
All right, so,
Wrap it up.
and then so finally, longevity, she's not gonna be there forever.
Yeah.
And so it's a good time to start to transition to another person who is associated with the school, hopefully, who would take on some of those responsibilities, learn what they are, and be able to carry the team forward, expansion or not. Could she, decide to retire at any point in the next, well, she's been there 25 years, I think she said. So she's getting closer to her time than she is. So I don't think she's threatening to leave anytime soon, but we'll see. That's my time.
Thank you. Marcia?
Well, since we're talking about robotics, I'll go ahead and talk for just a minute about it. I'm not sure that I have a whole lot more to add. My name is Marcia Sano. My husband is Leo and our son, of course, is on the robotics team. This is his second year. Again, just not really trying to repeat what they've said because I think they've said it very well. Just a couple of numbers. The robotics team 4 years ago had 5 members and now it's 32 members, excuse me. So for Mrs. Briley, it takes about an additional 20 to 40 hours per week additional to do the budgeting and plan the buses and plan the tournaments and, deal with the monies and be at the school for the kids. The kids have practice 2 days a week and then they have, tournaments during the year. It turns into a lot of, 16, 18-hour days on the weekends when they have tournaments. And like Leo said, it's her, she's it and she's phenomenal. But she also carries a full-time teaching load. And she runs the robotics team. And I mean, I just think my kid isn't the most athletic, but he's also not necessarily the chess club kid, but this is it. She's really fostered a really positive, wonderful environment. And I'd love to see that program thrive. I think it teaches a lot of the same values that sports teaches, which I think are also wonderful, but there's lots of failures, but there's lots of successes and it's neat to see the kids and how they thrive with it. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Mann, do you have anything to add to this?
With your permission, I just make a couple comments. The work of Miss Bradley has been tremendous for kids. They've competed at a high level. When she led the work of the district to join the South Metro STEM partnership, it really positioned our smaller school to be out ahead in the mix of some 6A schools in this space. She's a great classroom teacher. That idea that kids find a place to have belonging and an identity and a community, their pride, right? I think that really matters. We work to find ways for all kids to have a place that's theirs with their people. And my nephew, actually, for what it's worth, my nephew competed in the same, robotics leagues, and he landed his first job last week for FLIR in Wilsonville. And really, I had a chance to tour those facilities in Wilsonville at the same time we entered the South Metro STEM partnership. So there's great career pathways, and it's not lost on me. The structure for activities and staffing of our activities and staffing of our athletics is on a year-to-year basis, oftentimes dependent on the number of participants. And there are trends sometimes that we watch, and sometimes there are unexpected moments where we have a number of students. I was talking with our HR director earlier today just to confirm. Baseball, for example, last year had an unusually high number of students. So we added an additional coach as that season was up and started. So I think I would encourage Ms. Bradley to have that conversation with the athletic director, high school principal, and if we see as many kids, I think 34 kids demands, an additional adult.
Just to make sure
What did I say?
I maybe said 34.
I said 34. I think that warrants another adult, but I'd really like to have the high school administration as they navigate that, work with Riley to make those adjustments when we get to the school year next year. That's typically not something that would show up in the budget development process, though there are resources to be able to flex and increase a coaching staffing level if we have more students than we expected. Now, Gil, correct me if I'm wrong, and if we, during the budget adoption process, need to increase an allocation to allow for activities to flex when they need additional adults, then maybe that's a conversation. But my experience over time has been that we don't need to adjust that here, that adjustment takes place, on the fly, well, with intention, but with data around how many kids show up that year for that activity. So, I don't know if Ricky would add to that.
No, I mean, I think that's correct. The other aspect of this particular one is that position is not on the schedule for stipends.
It is.
So,
It's funded as an activity.
well, it's the robotics coach is on there, but there's not an assistant coach position. So then there would have to be a process to get that placed into that schedule.
And that collective bargaining, with our association to be able to determine that. So there are some smaller levers that we would need to pull, but suffice it to say, I guess I would want to assure, parents in the community that we're always going to err on the side of caution when it comes to having enough adults, especially when it comes down to safety. I can imagine 34 kids running around gymnasium, right? And I've been at those robotics competitions. There are hundreds of people,
Yeah.
and so I understand. Thanks for giving me a chance to just share some thoughts.
So from what you're saying, this is more of an in-house starting point than here tonight of us doing anything.
But I will ask tomorrow our high school principal, Dr. Atherton, to get a conversation with Emily and talk about plans for next year and how to flex when there are kids.
Anyone in the group have any questions?
Yes, great.
I have some questions, but I wondered if it would be more appropriate to have those questions during the discussion deliberation part of the agenda rather than right now, because I didn't want to hijack the process.
Okay.
Leo, you got kind of your answer, what?
No, I was unaware of what it would take, and the thought process that we had would be without knowing what the process was, or that there was a process to begin with, that we would present to a budget committee the idea that a stipend would be able to be considered for next year. So we're not 2 years behind, or whatever, however long that takes. And if it's something that's just like quote unquote simple, as realizing that we need to have the need in the moment and we flex it at the time, that's fantastic. But we weren't certain, we were thinking end of year budget committee, put forward the idea so that that could be accounted for in the upcoming period of time.
Yeah, I think this is the right place for advocacy. So I'm glad you came.
Oh.
Yeah,
Is it something that we should maybe contact Dr. about or?
I think having a conversation with him would be appropriate. Yeah.
One thing I will add, it's a year-round activity, so like, they just got done with one set of games, and so now they've got instructors for the new set of games, and they're already building bots for this next season. And so it doesn't end at any point, they keep going, some of them go through the summer.
Thank
We're
you.
not taking an assistant coach for the summer. Yeah, they don't stop.
Thank you.
So I think we've got a pretty good path of which direction we need to go. Everybody needs to go with this. Okay,
Right.
okay, thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on. Minutes approval for the May 2nd meeting.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Jim.
I move that we approve the minutes.
For a second?
I'll second.
Any questions, any additions, corrections? All those in favor of approving the May 2nd minutes as printed, so you're probably saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes, minutes of this May 2nd meeting are approved. Okay, we just did 1B, didn't we?
Yeah, we
Yes, we did.
Okay,
Okay.
all right, by looking at it myself. Okay, we're on to the discussion and deliberations of the budget. They did send out some information, where he gave you some more tonight. Rick, I'm gonna turn it over to you. This point,
So the thing I would like to do first of all is walk through with you why there were additional pages given to you tonight, what generated that need. Then take a look at the questions that have been submitted prior to the meeting and the answers were pushed down if there were any additional questions there. And then from there, we can move on to any other questions. So let's walk through these pages that you were given tonight. You were given Roman numeral 2, which has a list of school board and budget committee members and some administrative positions at the bottom. The reason this was changed was that some of the dates for the school board and budget committee needed to be changed in terms of when the terms expired. And then in the administration, the position for Tamara Jackson has been changed to director of teaching and learning from assistant director. So that's what generated those changes. On page 1, which is a table, which shows all the expenditures and requirements. Okay. One of the things that we will be surfacing a little bit later and come at the end of the questions is local budget law recommends / requires that if you have a May election or general obligation bonds, that you should include in your approved budget the debt service for the first year of those bonds. So table 1 has been increased in the area of debt service to accommodate those payments of principal and interest for the first year. Page 2, which is another table, which is just related to the general fund, has been changed in some of the number expenditure areas, which we'll go through in a minute. We've had some modifications in the expenditures, so those are reflected in here in this table. Okay. All right, page 3 did not change, but sometimes when you're printing double-sided, you get a couple of changes. In pages 4 and 5, which outline what we call FTE or full-time equivalent, are the next set of changes. If you'll look in the section of 112, classified / confidential employees, you'll go partway down there, you'll see 2160 motor services OT / PT. And if you'll see in the prior 2 years, that's been budgeted at 0.93. That's the way it was budgeted in the document you were given earlier. However, it's been changed to 0.8, and the number of days has been lengthened. So it was a 0.93 at 143 days. It's now a 0.8 at 179 days. To better serve the students that need those services. Then under administrators in 2211, the funding for that has shifted because it has shifted from an assistant superintendent or assistant director position to a director position, and that was funded differently. So it's 0.75 now that is coming out of the general fund for that position. And the other 0.25 is in a federal grant fund. Excuse me, it's in a early literacy fund, I'm sorry. So that's where that one's at. So there's some shift there in where that position's allocated. Okay. The other thing is under 2633, public info services. And this, when we were given the budget on May 2nd, the intention was for that to have been a contracted position, and that was the way it was in the budget. It's been changed to a employee position, so that 0.5 is in here now, and looks the same as it did the prior 2 years. Okay. Then we have page 6. And what's happened in page 6 is that the expenditures have been changed in total salaries and total associated payroll costs have been increased. Reflect those FTE changes we talked about. And then total purchase services have been decreased related to changing the director of communications from a contractor to an employee. So then total supplies increased by 3,000 and total other objects decreased by the same amount. And this is related to the correction of an administrative error. So two numbers got crunched together when we put the proposal together originally. And we got caught that in the subsequent review. So we're just pulling those apart. And then the unappropriated ending fund balance has decreased to reflect the increased costs. Okay. Pages 7 to 27. Included in those pages are those changes we just talked about at a macro level. So they're at a detail level in pages 7 to 27. Okay. Pages 29 to 31. FTE again, this time for special revenue funds. So if you look under federal funds, are you with me or are you?
No.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. I'm not putting them in and out, so I can move
Yeah.
faster than you.
Yeah,
Going faster than I can put them in and out.
Okay,
Hang on,
we'll take a pause.
take a pause, yes. Yeah. All right, I'm caught up now.
You ready to start again?
I am.
Okay. Pages 29 to 31. Under federal funds, the very first one, the top there. Under licensed, 2150. That has been reduced by 0.50. And then if you slide down to the classified and confidential with the same number, 2150, that's actually been increased by that 0.5. So there was an intention that there would be one full-time speech language pathology assistant. And it got split up between a speech language pathologist and a speech language pathology assistant. We just need to get those put back together in the right order. So that we had to make that change. If you look at federal funds under administrators, then 0.25 was removed to reflect the under 2211. I'm sorry. 0.25 was removed to reflect the elimination of the assistant director of teaching and learning position. Okay. All right. So that, and then when you start into page 33 and you move through page 33, that reflects all of those changes. All right. Now, I'm going to hand out a new set of pages for you. These were not rolled into the actual document yet because this is the potential. It's still there for change. So this is the general obligation bond debt retirement that I discussed previously. These numbers were provided by the bond underwriting firm that we've been utilizing throughout this entire time. This was the numbers that they suggested that we put in.
Where are we putting this paper? Where do we put this in?
Well, if you were to go back to Page
All the way
84.
to 84.
This would come immediately after 84,
Okay.
because now you're in the debt section.
That's pretty much all we have is that. 84, this is it.
Okay? What this shows on the revenue side is that there would be 3.625 million received from property taxes. And then on the expenditure side, you'll see $465,000 for principal payment and 3.160 for interest payment. When you get to the resolution of approving the budget, you will see that the amount that is being actually approved to assess is 3.8585. The reason is that in order to get the 3.6, you have to assess more, because not everybody pays their property tax bill. So that's based on historical underpayment percentage. So when we get there, that'll explain why that number looks different than these numbers. All right. Then questions that were submitted and answers that were pushed back out. Rather than reading through all of those, I will give you the opportunity, if you had a specific question on any of the answers, you can certainly feel free to ask those at this point. Okay. Hearing none,
Doesn't sound like it.
Chair, I return to you.
So I have questions and comments, but not about what he's talking about.
Right, so that's what we're gonna, that's next.
Okay,
So the chair will now open it up.
I'll open it up for questions. Go ahead, Craig.
okay, so here we go, my question. Here we go. Not to belabor the point, but how much do we pay for the stipend for the current robotics coach?
I chatted with our executive director of HR earlier, and it's just south of $5,000.
Is that per year?
In our conversation was per year,
Per
yes.
year, okay. So theoretically, if there was an assistant robotics coach, would that person make half of that or something between half and the same amount?
Yeah, there is not that position in the collective bargaining agreement, so again, that would be a matter of something we have to discuss.
So obviously they would make more. Right? Okay. All right, yeah, I just, I was curious about that. I'm all fine with, what you said earlier, Tony, but I do agree with those folks who are no longer here, that, it's good to, sort of keep your eye on that and also know that there is money there available. Should that need be there, whether it's for robotics or any one of the other, activities. So is there sufficient money? My question is there sufficient money that's built into our budget? Should we need to come up with $3,000 for stipend for a position like that?
So Director Lockridge, what I would say is, as I emphasized last time, the budget is an estimate.
Right.
And so there's a lot of estimates in here.
Right.
And generally speaking, we're on the conservative side, so
Right.
there's out of $40-some million, there's probably not enough.
Substantial, unappropriated ending fund balance.
Right. Plus there's a contingency, that'd be really strange, we need to go to the contingency.
Okay. Okay.
I'd like to take that a little step further, if you don't mind. What are our major, I know it's a negotiated thing, what are our major head coaches make, major sports this season?
Yeah. Roughly, the director, let's,
Yeah.
you probably don't have a fucking bargaining agreement with you now, but when we're talking, oh, do you? I bet you do. She's that detailed.
Yeah, she is. Putting the
The
pressure.
head football coach is just under, 8,000.
Okay. You have some
Oh, I
questions?
just had a question about, would it be prudent for the budget committee to, I don't know, take a vote or make an agreement that we support finding an assistant or Mrs. Briley, when you go to talk to him, that you're gonna pass that message along?
Yeah,
I think that would be the discretion of the committee, and I think if it's what I'm hearing you say. You know, is a vote sort of to declare the intentions of the committee to support that moving,
Yes.
Yeah.
but that it's not a direction yet.
No.
But that you would support adding that to the
Yes.
student population.
Recommendation.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know if we have to make a vote. I think it looks to me like everybody in the room agrees that that should
yeah.
be definitely looked at and happen, if it can happen.
I'll just throw it out there. Is everyone in favor of taking her suggestion and passing that on?
I would say to the extent that we would give the same deference to any other group,
Yeah.
and it was similarly situated, because I wouldn't want it to be just because they happen to show up at the meeting and express. I mean, it's like, obviously, those people who come need to be heard, but there may be other groups who thought it would be pointless to come. For whatever reason, I know we've had people in the past from some of our outlying schools who have expressed the need for more money for this or for that, for activities and whatever, and, you know, maybe they haven't gotten quite what they wanted, so. But yeah, I absolutely support that concept for everybody, not just.
Go ahead.
I support it too, but one question I have is we're only paying her $5,000 a year right now. Is that an appropriate amount for the amount of time that she puts on, being that it's a year-long process? Okay, I understand we have great coaches and whatnot, but you know, $8,000 for a head football coach for something that lasts for 3 months, 4 months maybe, versus 12 months, because it's going year round. $5,000 really an appropriate amount, or should we be giving her more?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
If you're okay, I'll go ahead and respond generally.
Yeah.
If I look at the varsity football coach, but I put my varsity football coach hat on, it is more than just that football season. It's summer camps and it's
Okay.
meeting with your coaching staff and strategizing, it's pre-watching films. It's what, at the end of the day, great coaches get paid probably 50 cents on the hour in terms of what they do. I guess I just recognize that there's
Everybody puts in any kind of effort.
Yeah.
With anything does.
Yes. And as far as the, the robotics, advisor position, again, that's, part of the collective bargaining agreement. So we'd have to have that conversation with our association to determine, does it warrant more, compensation? And I guess I want to be careful to, to not have a conversation outside of that meeting with the association.
Yeah. No, I was kind of curious because it seems like that would be a very good, it's something that's very, very good for students, and I think that, would be well placed money to put more money into that group, especially with hiring an assistant, maybe even giving them more money, based on what they have to do year round. So,
That has to, there's a procedure for that to happen too, right?
So, Mr. Chair, if I might, I was just gonna say, one thing I would be cautious about is, this body or even the school board trying to micromanage the compensation of any of the positions in the district. I'm not disagreeing with your sort of basic premise, but I am saying that's probably better left to the superintendent and the business manager and
I was
so
just
forth, as
curious.
well as the bargaining association and so forth, bargaining unit.
Jimmy?
I have a question. I support anything we can do for the clubs. I believe, I've heard your figures come out before about student success and kind of been engaged beyond the regular school. You mentioned that possibly having the extra assistance is tied to how many participants. So some kind of threshold to what Craig spoke of making that available to any other club, that there would be some kind of number involved where that's when they could speak up once you hit that number. That way you wouldn't have a club at 15 students saying they have one, we want one. So like some fair language,
Some objective standards.
Yeah. which again speaks to it being not a huge conversation, but it's a lot bigger than us having tables tonight.
I think it'd be interesting to ask the teacher, the
It's private.
instructor, if she's feeling overwhelmed too. I mean, maybe she's 9. And she doesn't chance it. She never.
It sounds like this group is sending a message to the next step that they're in favor of doing, supporting any ideas that are brought up.
Supporting the idea that it should at least be looked into and talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Whatever they can do to help that.
Yeah, my insurance will have a conversation back around.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions regarding the budget? Jimmy, back to you.
I make one, this is more of a comment.
Go ahead.
I just want to say how proud I am of our district. How thankful I am of Mr. Gill for coming back again and leaving us in such a great financial position.
Yes.
Right now in the news, there are so many districts that have fallen off the path somehow. And we were able to just go through a bond process and be in a great place to talk about the numbers. And I'm proud to be able to regurgitate our numbers. Good thing.
I'm sorry, there's one thing I where I looked in all my notes, Rick, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I
Right
wanted,
here, folks.
curious about an answer to this question. I noticed on page 6, under purchase services, even with the change, the total amount for the 2024-25 school year, it's about $1.5 million, if my addition is right, or subtraction, whatever you want to call it, higher than the prior year, and I just wondered what that was going for.
If you go back to the questions that were posed and the answers that were provided, a lot of that's driven by supported ed. And specifically, there was a question around the nurses and the fact that there are, for this year, there wasn't anything budgeted for that one-to-one nurse. And next year, we're budgeting for 2 at 320,000. The other thing was that this year, the budget for having students not be instructed in the district, but in a different program was under budgeted considerably. So that has gone up by about $750,000 to $800,000, just that increase alone. So those two together are about 1.1 or so. And then you get the normal and cost increases for like transportation and stuff like that.
Anyone else have any questions, comments? Lori, do we have to read something before we take the next step?
Resolution.
Okay, I'm going to read the budget approval resolution first, and then we would take any action from there. 2024-2025 proposed budget approval resolution. Be it resolved that the budget committee of Multnomah River School District 35 approve the budget as presented to the budget committee and which is now on file in the office of the superintendent. And be it further resolved that the amounts shown for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 24 are for the purpose shown and are thus hereby approved as set out in the budget document. Be it further resolved that the budget committee approves the Multnomah River District number 35, 2024-25 imposed tax of 3,815,000 for debt service funds. And the final part, and it be further resolved that the budget committee approves the permanent rate of is that $4.70 per $1,000 of general fund to be applied. Total property values as determined by the Clackamas County Assessor. Approved this the 23rd day of May 2024. I'll entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
Brad Hanson, that permanent rate is actually 4.7001.
Yeah, I tried to cut it off.
So, 001s get pretty important when you're applying against the assessed value of the district, so we need that whole
Again,
thing there.
all right, anyone wish to make a motion to send it on to the school board for approval? Kim,
I motion that we approve the budget for the 2024-2025 as presented.
I'll second.
it's been seconded, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? And resolve it again that there are 12 members present tonight out of the 13. And it does take 7 or 8 to approve this. Do that. All those in favor, we have a show of hands, please. All opposed, same sign. Budget passes unanimously with 1 absenteeism and 1 unfilled position. Okay? Is there any further other business to take care of tonight? Mrs. Luke here has moved to adjourn. Her cousin, second, since I haven't seen him for a couple years. And all those in favor of adjourning? Taking adjourn. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Excellent job. Yes.
Another fine year.
Another wonderful year, yeah. All right.